everyone, and welcome to the Next in Natilix Wednesday webinar series. So today we're going to be looking at how legacy storage can be refreshed with fast, dependable and always modern storage with Pure and their Evergreen Storage solutions. So first of all, we'll be hearing from Max Brown, their Channel Technical Manager over at Pure, talking us through Evergreen Storage and how that can help customers like yourselves. And then after that, we'll open up the floor to Q&A with our panelists today. That's Craig and Nigel. So they're both members on our design team and solution architects, so working with our customers across Natilix with their data center and storage solutions. So do use the Q&A panel in your window on the right-hand side as we go along to put your questions across to us, and we'll cover them all off at the end of the session. And don't forget, if there is anything that you think of after the session, we will be happy to follow up with you, and we'll be sending out all the content that we've shared with you today on an email afterwards. So no worries about making notes furiously. That'll all be with you shortly. So then, let's get started. Firstly, we'll hear from Max Brown at Pure Storage.
Hello, and thank you for joining this Pure Storage webinar on Evergreen. So if we just talk about what the current status quo is and the current situation that most customers find. In terms of array purchases, they usually come with a 3 or 5 year support contract. At the end of that 3 or 5 year support contract, should you wish to renew your support, you generally find that most vendors will put the price up quite a lot. And this can be up to anything up to 40%. So you're suddenly paying a lot more money to keep something that's actually got quite old, which means by doing this, you're not getting advances in performance or density or any new features, mainly because that other vendor has a vested interest in selling you a new piece of hardware or a new technology, which is your traditional forklift upgrade. Tech refresh, rebuy, you're basically repurchasing something that you already had, therefore you are throwing money away. And doing a data migration and doing a tech refresh can take some time, a lot of planning, and it's not something that any customer I know actually enjoys. So Evergreen Storage isn't just some marketing program, it isn't just a financial exercise, it's actually baked into our technology and our architecture. Every part of Evergreen that we designed is focused around customer simplicity, agility. That is everything that we do at Pure, customer first, simplicity and agility. And although there are many other programs that sound a lot like Evergreen, once you scratch under the covers and you look at the small print, you'll find out it's not similar at all. We are the market leaders with this approach. We're often imitated, but we're never bettered. So it's the physical hardware architecture that is Evergreen. That means you never have to buy a new Pure array to replace an old one, in conjunction with our Evergreen subscriptions, which enable us to provide you with Evergreen Storage. So ideally, what customers want is storage that does work almost like some kind of service. So no planned downtime. You never have to do a data migration. Once you migrate to Pure, that's the last data migration you'll ever do. And then once you've deployed it, you upgrade the bits that you would like to upgrade. So it could be the controllers for more performance, it could be more capacity, it could be denser drives, or most likely it's going to be taking advantage of the latest features that come out. And it's an in-place upgrade. It's not actually buying new arrays or planning things or moving data around, which therefore means your investment is protected over a much longer number of years than what you would get from a traditional 5-year support contract with a traditional vendor. And performance stays the same throughout the life of the array. So the Evergreen business model has many kind of facets to it, and we'll cover off some of the key areas in the next few slides. So let's start off with software. So the software on the array, this is all included, and any future features will also be included. There is no cost for the software. In fact, when you buy a Pure array, there is one SKU, which is for the array itself. We don't have any other line items to add, because the array is the array. Every piece of software is included, no hidden costs. And we've been doing this from day one. So if we went back through time and looked at our enhancements with the code and the software that runs on the Pure Array, some of it has made the array go faster. Some of it is actually giving you extra capacity because we've made our data reduction algorithms even better. Sometimes it could be massively feature-rich solutions, such as active cluster. This is our metro clustering functionality. And I know that pretty much all other vendors charge an arm and a leg for doing something like a metro cluster functionality or being able to do synchronous replication or synchronous mirroring. With Pure, if you've got two arrays, you've got that feature. It's built into the software and it costs nothing. And also you get Pure One, which is our phone home support. So from this allows customers to do their own analytics and forecasting and monitoring and reporting, but also it allows our support guys to do predictive support model. So they can actually analyze what could happen on customers' arrays. And as I said, we've been doing this from day one. So in terms of the software that has been gradually released over time, everything from async replication to quality of service to synchronous replication and active clustering through doing snapshots to the cloud. This has all been included at no cost. It's included with your Evergreen subscription. And this requires no downtime and no impact on performance to do a code upgrade. So let's look at the support cost, or as we would call it, the subscription. So this is a subscription to innovation. It's a subscription to predictability because the support costs stay flat. So with Evergreen, you get what's called flat and fair maintenance. The support cost will never go up. We don't get to a point where we say, oh, you've hit year 5 or year 6 and year 7 support is going to go up by 30%. There is no point during the life cycle of any Pure device that the support cost would go up due to time. The only time that your support cost would go up is if you purchase more capacity, because that's what it's tied to. It's tied to the amount of capacity that you actually have. It is not tied to the age of the array, which then means it makes it very predictable for finance organizations or accounting to work out what their future costs will be. You're not going to get a sudden sting in the tail at the end of year 5, like you would with many other vendors. We also don't have any kind of warranty that we pass on to customers. If any component should fail at any point during its lifetime, we replace it, no questions asked. So it doesn't matter whether we ourselves at Pure have a warranty with a manufacturer. That's not passed on to the customers. Anything fails, it gets replaced. We never have to buy new components to replace old ones. From a support perspective, again, it's about giving you effortless reliability and giving you that true tier 1 experience, whether you want a gold subscription or a silver subscription. And the way a lot of this is done is something called Pure One. So Pure One is a tool that customers can use where they can visualize their arrays and in conjunction with things like VMware as well, so they can look at their entire environments. They can do predictive modeling, analytics, and forecasting. If you were to call Pure, you would get straight through to instant level 2 support. So we don't have level 1 that's call entitlement that then has to work out who you are, where you're based, what arrays you've got, and then they call you back an hour later. You're going to talk straight to a very technically qualified engineer. Because customers arrays all of the arrays worldwide, phone home every 30 seconds, and there's about 20,000 arrays doing this, we collect about 1 trillion points of data every day, which we then run our own machine learning and deep learning on to do predictive support. So if we could spot something that could become an issue, we can then fix it before it actually does become an issue. This is why we have such a high net promoter score with our customers, because we pretty much do whatever we can to make sure that they never fail. In other words, don't call us, we'll call you. So the part that probably Pure are most famous for, we revolutionized the industry with this, because we just basically said, why are customers constantly being ripped off? Why every 3 years or every 5 years do they have to buy a new piece of hardware to replace an old one? It's a gravy train that the major vendors have been on for years, and we just said that's wrong. But also this ability to not make customers buy new arrays to replace old ones, it's because of the way we design the architecture. If a customer needs to upgrade from, let's say, an X20 to an X50, or they need to go to the new array every 3 years because we're doing a controller swap, this is included in their subscription. And from a hardware perspective, this means that you're never going to need to buy a new Pure array to replace an old one, because the old array becomes new pretty much every 3 years. And also because of our architecture, we can take advantage of the latest iterations of Flash. We went through MLC, we've done TLC. We now have NVMe direct flash modules, which are our own design. So by designing an architecture that could take advantage of the latest features, that advantage gets passed on to our customers, but it's included in their subscription. And as I've mentioned a few times, everything can be upgraded online. There's no downtime. More importantly, there's no performance loss, and there's never a data migration. So this free every three, the way that this works, let's say you purchase an array with a 3-year support or 3-year subscription. At the end of year 3, you then sign a contract for another 3 years, which takes you to the end of year 6. But at the point when you sign that contract, at the end of year 3, in other words, you're doing your renewal, you will get your controllers upgraded to the latest, greatest version. And we release a new version of controller roughly every 12 to 15 months. So you're likely to be going 2, possibly 3 generations ahead. Compare this to many other vendors who refresh their technology once every 3 years, maybe even every 5 or 6 years. Now you're getting access to the latest advancements in technology at a much faster pace than you would get from many of the other vendors. And we've been doing this from the first array in 2012 through to what we have now in 2020. It's worth asking yourself the question, what storage were you running on in 2012? What storage are you running on today? And how did you get from 2012 to 2020? How did your storage evolve? How many data migrations did you have to do? How many new pieces of technology did you have to adopt and learn? How many runbooks did you have to change? With Pure, the customer that migrated in 2012, the first migration onto Pure, through to 2020, that customer has never had to do a data migration ever again. They've never had to have any impact on performance or any downtime. So true non-disruptive upgrades. And in fact, if you look from 2014 to 2015, there was a fundamental change in the architecture. We went from using commodity x86 servers to our own unique chassis-based design. But even that upgrade from an FA450 to a FlashArray M was a non-disruptive data-in-place upgrade. We did not have to migrate data, move data, or copy data. We actually changed the hardware on the fly while the system's running with no impact on performance. Whenever a customer migrates to Pure, that's the last migration they will ever do. So just summarising some of these key benefits. So software, everything's included, everything's free. There's nothing we can miss. Even some of the new technologies I've seen where vendors have said our software is free, ask about encryption. Because then I subsequently found out that this specific vendor said, well, actually, if you want encryption, you need to buy the encryption license and you need to upgrade to self-encrypting drives. That kind of thing has never and will never happen with Pure. Everything's included, whether it's dedupe, compression, encryption, snapshots, clustering, vSphere plugins, the list goes on. From a flat and fair perspective with the support cost, this does stay flat and it does stay fair. You will never pay more for your support. It's flat and fair forever, which makes it a very predictive model. There's no sudden uplift because you've got to year 5 or year 4 or year whatever. From a support perspective, you are getting premium tier 1 services without the extra expense. Even if you're going with Evergreen Silver, and you can kind of see a few differences here, it's still 15 minutes Sev 1. We still do the same on-site SLAs for break fix. And then the bottom bit about the controllers subscription, the free every 3, getting new controllers every 3 years, which means you're never going to have to buy a new array to replace an old one because the old one never gets old. If we compare this to what I'd call the boys in blue, because most of them tend to have blue colours these days, but just find out what is included in terms of, do they have free software or not really? What about support cost? What happens in year 6? That's always an awkward question to ask some of the vendors. From a support perspective, what kind of support are they getting for the money they pay? Or do they have to pay a lot more for some kind of premium service? And then also, if you buy an array from another vendor, ask them at what point will you need to buy a new one to replace it? Will they be happy to say, well, actually, you won't. That array will almost live forever. Because it won't. Their business model is built around customers rebuying the same thing every few years. We're so confident of this. I mean, we have over 7,500 customers. We've been doing this for 6 years, but we're happy to kind of put our money where our mouth is and guarantee this. So we have what's called a right size guarantee. This is where you tell us how much capacity you need, and we will guarantee that you will get that. Because bearing in mind, any array that does data reduction, for example, if we said you will get 5-to-1 data reduction, and for some reason you only got 3.5-to-1, that means you're getting less capacity than you thought. If that was to happen, we would, and we've guaranteed this, then we would give you free capacity. Right? So we can guarantee that you will get the capacity that you require. also do a love your storage guarantee. So if you don't have time to do a POC, or you haven't got the ability to do that, or you just want to try Pure, you can try up to 30 days at no risk. If you don't like it, send it back. So again, we've not had an array come back, but we're happy to put that guarantee in place. If your array had to go from one model to another because you were running out of capacity, which meant you actually had to go to the next model up. So in this example, customers going from an M20 with 10 terabytes to an X50 with 48 terabytes. Because you're going from M20 controllers to X50 controllers, you don't have to pay the full cost for the X50 controllers. You just pay the differential of the controller cost between the M20 and the X50. This is what we call upgrade flex. So in other words, you're never repurchasing something. You're never throwing something away that you've already bought. You're getting a kind of a flexible upgrade or trade-in between the two things. We also do capacity consolidation. So to give you an example here, the array on the left and the array on the right are actually the same thing. But what we've got is we've got a chassis which has 5.5 terabytes, and then it has 10 empty slots. And then there's also a shelf which has 12 terabytes. What you could then do, as per this example, where it says empty, we could put in a 76 terabyte data pack. We could then evacuate the data from the 12 and the 5.5 into that 76, and then we would take those drives back. However, we can discount that 76 by up to 25%, which means you're effectively getting money back for the 12 and the 5.5 terabytes. So you're not actually buying new capacity and throwing it away. The new capacity is discounted to make sure that you kind of get your money back for what you originally had. We have some comparisons on our website at that link. It's a very kind of high level comparison. There's obviously a lot more detail around each vendor, but this is what I would urge you to do. If you are talking to other vendors and they say, yeah, we do something like Evergreen, just double check. Look at the fine print. There are some vendors that may swap controllers, but it's only once. They'll only do that once after 3 years and never do it again. There are others that will guarantee data reduction, but then when you look at how they're guaranteeing it, they're guaranteeing it against things that don't really make sense, such as thin provision and snapshots, because that's not actually a space-saving technique. So I won't spend too much time on this, but again, drill into the detail of the other vendors. It's not always what you think. So just to kind of summarize, final slide, let's just go through this again. Software is included now and in the future. One SKU for the array itself, no SKUs for anything else, apart from the subscription and maybe a one-off installation. The support cost itself, flat and fair maintenance. At no point does it suddenly increase in price. From a support perspective, you are getting premium support services at a normal cost. Just compare this with all the different services that all the other vendors offer. It gets quite complex after a while. We make it pretty simple. And then lastly, the bit that we're most famous for is this free every 3. As I've said enough times on this presentation, but you will never have to buy a new Pure array to replace an old one, because your old one becomes new every 3 years, because we're going to swap the controllers at no cost. And then if you want to swap the media at some point in time, if you're swapping out old small SSDs with newer, denser direct flash NVMe modules, again, the capacity consolidation program means that you're effectively getting the money back for the old drives that you have. So you're never wasting money with Pure. So hopefully that's piqued your interest. If you'd like to know more about this, feel free to go to the website. There's a lot of information there, or contact your local Pure reseller.
So some great tips and information there from Max over at Pure. So I think really just want to kind of shout out. So we'll follow up with this as well, but you know, if you're looking for some support to understand a little bit more about how you can, you know, do the best with your legacy storage and make use of Pure Storage's Evergreen approach, then reach out to us. Either reply to the email that you'll get after this session, or reach out to us at hello@natilic.com, and our team will be happy to help with putting together a storage clinic for you, sort of 60-minute session to explore your business challenges and the needs around your specific use cases in your business. And they'll help put together a personalised plan for you. So I can see we have got some questions, so we'll move on to our Q&A session now. Craig and Nigel, our first question is, does Evergreen apply to just Pure's flash arrays, or does it apply to the FlashBlade as well?
I'll take this one, Lauren. Yeah, I mean, in the webinar today, we looked mostly at flash array. That's what Max was speaking about. But the Evergreen Storage program, it applies to both flash array and FlashBlade solutions from Pure. So, one thing to note though is that Max referenced the right size guarantee, where if you speak to Pure about the capacity you need, they'll guarantee that the solution they provide will give you that capacity. That right size guarantee is only available for the flash arrays.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so question 2, how does Pure guarantee 0 downtime and no performance impact when upgrading the controllers? That was something that Max mentioned a few times. So yeah, how do they achieve that, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I could take that one then, Lauren. Good question, but it's actually fundamentally built into the architecture of the flash array and the flash blades themselves, insofar that the chassis itself, where all the components go into, is a dumb chassis. That means that you can take out all the components, like the controllers, without it having to redo the chassis itself. Now, each controller is sized to take all of the performance in one controller. So if you get a failure and one controller fails, it doesn't matter, it won't have any performance impact. And as that's built into the architecture, it means that you can then do this hardware refresh, swap out one controller at a time. And the other factor is that the entire environment is stateless. The flash arrays are stateless. What that basically means is everything is put into software. Even the low level, say, worldwide port names, which are used in the fiber channel, they're defined in software and not in hardware. So when you swap out the hardware, those software parameters get pushed down onto the new hardware. So there's absolutely no change to the configuration of flash arrays or to your zoning within the fiber channel SAN itself. So hence why it can be achieved quite simply.
Great, thank you, Nigel. Yeah, I think that's certainly that slide Max went through between kind of 2012 and 2020 and not having any downtime is pretty compelling stuff. So interesting to know how they're doing it. Cool, and looks like we've got one more question. So if there's no spare capacity in the shelves or disks in an array, how would capacity consolidation work?
Yeah, I'll take that one again. That's a good question, because obviously a lot of clients will expand out their flash array so that they're using the full capacity. Before then, they're going to need to increase capacity again. So you're not going to have any spare room within the array. So in this instance, a swing shelf would ideally be used. So the swing shelf would just literally an empty shelf, which will connect up to the flash array. Then some of the disk will be moved into that, freeing up space in the original flash array that the new drives can be put into. And at that point, then obviously the data can get migrated, and in the end, you're going to end up with everything moved onto the new disks and all the old disks can be taken out. However, if there is no space for the actual new, the swing shelf, then it's a case of swapping out one disk at a time, which, as you can imagine, is pretty laborious, because every time that you do that, you've got to wait for the array to reconfigure and for parity to come in and be set again. But that's the worst case scenario.
Great, thank you, Nigel. So I think that's it on our Q&A for today. Like I say, if anyone has any more questions that you think of afterwards, please do let us know. You can email us at hello@Natilic, or get back to us on the email that we'll be sending out following up this session. So yeah, just to say thank you very much for joining us today. It's been good to kind of share that with you, good to hear your questions, and we look forward to hopefully being in touch with you soon. Thanks, everyone.